Hello, welcome back to part 5 of The Old Man and the Sea. When we last left off, the sun had set, and it was the second night of the man and the fish that he was trying to catch. He had just lamented about the fish being his friend and he must kill him, and he said, "I'm glad we do not have to try to kill the stars." Imagine if each day a man must try to kill the moon, he thought. The moon runs away, but imagine if a man each day should have to kill the sun. We were born lucky, he thought. Then he was sorry for the great fish that had nothing to eat, and his determination to kill him never relaxed him in his sorrow. How many people will he feed, he thought, but are they worthy to eat him? No, of course not. There is no one worthy of eating him from the manner of his behavior and his great dignity. I do not understand these things, he thought, but it is good that we do not have to try to kill the sun or the moon or the stars. It is enough to live on the sea and kill our true brothers. Now, he thought, I must think about the drag. It has its perils and its merits. I may lose so much line that I will lose him if he makes his effort, and the drag made by the oars is in place, and the boat loses all her lightness. Her lightness prolongs both our suffering, but it is my safety, since he is at great speed and has yet never employed. No matter what passes, I must gut the dolphin so he does not spoil and eat some of him to be strong. Now I will rest an hour more and feel that he is solid and steady before I move back to the stern to do the work and make the decision. In the meantime, I can see how he acts, and if he shows any changes, the oars are a good trick. But it has reached the time to play for safety. He is much fish still, and I saw that the hook was in the corner of his mouth, and he has kept his mouth shut tight. The punishment of the hook is nothing. The punishment of hunger, and that he's against something that he does not comprehend, is everything. Rest now, old man, and let him work until your next duty comes. He rested for what he believed to be 2 hours. The moon did not rise now until late, and he had no way of judging the time, nor was he really resting except comparatively. He was still bearing the pool of the fish across his shoulders, but he placed his left hand on the gunwale of the bow and confided more and more of the resistance to the fish to the skiff itself. How simple it would be if I could make the line fast, he thought, but with one small lurch he could break it. I must cushion the pull of the line with my body, and at all times be ready to give line with both hands. But you've not slept yet, old man, he said aloud. It is half a day and night, and now another day, and you have not slept. You must devise a way so that you can sleep a little if he is quiet and steady. If you do not sleep, you might become unclear in the head. I'm clear enough in the head, he thought. Too clear. I'm as clear as the stars that are my brothers. Still, I must sleep. They sleep, and the moon and the sun sleep, and even the ocean sleeps sometimes on certain days when there is no current and a flat calm. But remember to sleep, he thought. Make yourself do it and devise some simple and sure way about the lines. Now go back and prepare the dolphin. It is too dangerous to rig the oars and drag if you must sleep. I would go without sleeping, he told himself, but it would be too dangerous. He started to work his way back to the stern on his hands and knees, being careful not to jerk against the fish. He may be half asleep himself, he thought, but I don't want him to rest. He must pull until he dies. Back in the stern, he turned so that his left hand held the strain of the line across his shoulders and drew his knife from its sheath with its right hand. The stars were bright now, and he saw the dolphin clearly, and he pushed the blade of his knife into its head and drew him out from under the stern. He put one of his feet on the fish and slit him quickly from the vent up to the tip of his lower jaw. Then he put his knife down and gutted him with his right hand, scooping him out clean and pulling the gills clear. He felt the maw heavy and slippery in his hands, and he slit it open. There were 2 flying fish inside. They were fresh and hard, and he laid them side by side and dropped the guts and the gills over the stern. They sank, leaving a trail of phosphorescence in the water. The dolphin was cold and a leprous gray-white now in the starlight, and the old man skinned one side of him while he held his right foot on the fish's head. Then he turned him over and skinned the other side and cut each side off from the head down to the tail. He slid the carcass overboard and looked to see if there was any swirl in the water, but there was only the light of its slow descent. He turned then and placed the 2 flying fish inside the 2 fillets of fish, and putting his knife back in its sheath, he worked his way slowly back to the bow. His back was bent with the weight of the line across it, and he carried the fish in his right hand. Back in the bow, he laid the 2 fillets of fish out on the wood with the flying fish beside them. After that, he settled the line across his shoulders in a new place and held it again with his left hand resting on the gunwale. Then he leaned over the side and washed the flying fish in the water, noting the speed of the water against his hand. His hand was phosphorescent from skinning the fish, and he watched the flow of the water against it. The flow was less strong, and he rubbed the side of his hand against the planking of the skiff. Particles of phosphorus floated off and drifted slowly astern. He is tiring or he is resting, the old man said. Now let me get through the eating of this dolphin and get some rest and a little sleep. Under the stars and with the night, colder all the time, he ate half of one of the dolphin fillets and one of the flying fish gutted with its head cut off. What an excellent fish dolphin is to eat cooked, he said, and what a miserable fish raw. I will never go in a boat again without salt or limes. If I had brains, I would have splashed water on the bow all day, and drying it would have made the salt, he thought. But then I did not hook the dolphin until almost sunset. Still, it was a lack of preparation, but I've chewed it well, and I am not nauseated. The sky was clouding over the east, and one after another the stars he knew were gone. It looked now as though he were moving into a great canyon of clouds, and the wind had dropped. There will be bad weather in 3 or 4 days, he said, but not tonight and not tomorrow. Rig now to get some sleep, old man, while the fish is calm and steady. He held the line tight in his right hand and then pushed his thigh against his right hand as he leaned all his weight against the wood of the bow. Then he passed the line a little lower on his shoulders and braced his left hand on it. My right hand can hold it as long as it is braced, he thought. If it relaxes in sleep, my left hand will wake me as the line goes out. It is hard on the right hand, but he is used to punishment. Even if I sleep 20 minutes or half an hour, it is good. He laid forward, cramping himself against the line with all his body, putting all his weight onto his right hand, and he was asleep. He did not dream of the lions, but instead of a vast school of porpoises that stretched for 8 or 10 miles, and it was in the time of their mating, and they would leap high into the air and return into the same hole they had made in the water when they leaped. Then he dreamed that he was in the village on his bed, and there was a norther, and he was very cold, and his right arm was asleep because his head had rested on it instead of a pillow. After that, he began to dream of the long yellow beach, and he saw the first of the lines come down onto it in the early dark. And then the other lines came, and he rested his chin on the wood of the bows, where the ship lay anchored with the evening offshore breeze, and he waited to see if there would be more lions, and he was happy. The moon had been up for a long time, but he slept on, and the fish pulled on steadily, and the boat moved into the tunnel of clouds. He woke with the jerk of his right fist coming up against his face, and the line burning out through his right hand. He had no feeling of his left hand, but he had braked all he could with his right, and the line rushed out. Finally, his left hand found the line, and he leaned back against the line, and now it burned his back in his left hand, and his left hand was taking all of the strain and cutting badly. He looked back at the coils of the line, and they were feeding smoothly. Just then the fish jumped, making a great bursting of the ocean, and then a heavy fall. Then he jumped again, and the boat was going fast, although the line was still racing out. And the old man was raising the strain to breaking point, and raising it to breaking point again and again. He had pulled down tight onto the bow, and his face was in the cut slice of dolphin, and he could not move. This is what we waited for, he thought. So now, let us take it. Make him pay for the line, he thought. Make him pay for it. He could not see the fishes jump, but only heard the breaking of the ocean and the heavy splash as he fell. The speed of the line was cutting his hands badly, but he had always known this would happen, and he tried to keep the cutting across the callous parts and not let the line slip into the palm nor cut the fingers. If the boy was here, he could wet the coils of line, he thought. Yes, if the boy were here. If the boy were here. The line went out and out and out, but it was slowing now, and he was making the fish earn each inch of it. Now he got his head up from the wood and cut off the slice of fish that his cheek had crushed. Then he was on his knees, and then he rose slowly to his feet. He was seating line, but more slowly all the time. He worked back to where he could feel with his foot the coils of line that he could not see. There was plenty of line still, and now the fish had to pull the friction of all the new line through the water. Yes, he thought. And now he has jumped more than a dozen times and filled the sacks along his back with air, and he cannot go down deep to die, where I cannot bring him up. He will start circling soon, and then I must work on him. I wonder what started him so suddenly. Could it have been hunger that made him desperate? Or was he frightened by something in the night? Maybe he suddenly felt fear. But he was such a calm, strong fish, and he seemed so fearless and so confident. It is strange. You better be fearless and confident yourself, old man, he said. You're holding him again, but you cannot get line. But soon he has to circle. The old man held him with his left hand in his shoulders now and stooped down and scooped up water in his right hand to get the crushed dolphin flesh off of his face. He was afraid that it might nauseate him and he would vomit and lose his strength. When his face was cleaned, he washed his right hand in the water over the side and then let it stay in the salt water while he watched the first light come before the sunrise. He's headed almost east, he thought. That means he is tired and going with the current. Soon he will have to circle. Then our true work begins. After he judged that his right hand had been in the water long enough, he took it out and looked at it. It is not bad, he said, and the pain does not matter to a man. He took hold of the line carefully so that it did not fit into any of the fresh line cuts, and shifted his weight so that he could put his left hand into the sea on the other side of the skiff. You do not do so badly for something worthless, he said to his left hand, but there was a moment when I could not find you. Why was I not born with two good hands, he thought. Perhaps it was my fault in not training that one properly, but God knows he has had enough chances to learn. He did not do so badly in the night, though, and he has only cramped once. If he cramps again, let the line cut him off. When he thought he knew that he was not being clear-headed, and he thought he should choose some more of the dolphin. But I can't, he told himself. It is better to be lightheaded than to lose your strength from nausea. And I know I cannot keep it if I eat it, since my face was in it. I will keep it for an emergency until it goes bad. But it is too late to try for strength now through nourishment. You're stupid, he told himself. Eat the other flying fish. It was there, cleaned and ready, and he picked it up with his left hand and ate it, chewing the bones carefully and cleaning all of it down to the tail. It was more nourishment than almost any fish, he thought, at least the kind of strength that I need. Now I have done what I can, he thought. Let him begin to circle, and let the fight come. The sun was rising for the third time since he had put to sea, and when the fish started to circle. He could not see by the slant of the line that he could see not by the slant of the line that the fish was circling. It was too early for that. He just felt a faint slackening of the pressure of the line and commenced to pull on it gently with his right hand. It tightened as always, but just when he reached the point where it would break, line began to come. He slipped his shoulders and head from under the line and began to pull in line steadily and gently. He used both of his hands in a swinging motion and tried to do the pulling as much as he could with his body and his legs. His old legs and shoulders pivoted with the swinging of the pulling. It is a very big circle, he said, but he is circling. Then the line would not come in anymore, and he held it until he saw the drops jumping from it in the sun. Then it started out, and the old man knelt down and let it go grudgingly back into the dark water. He is making the far part of his circle now, he said. I must hold all I can, he thought. The strain will shorten his circle each time. Perhaps in an hour I will see him. Now I must convince him, and then I must kill him. But the fish kept on circling slowly, and the old man was wet with sweat and tired deep into his bones 2 hours later. But the circles were much shorter now, and from the way the line slanted, he could tell the fish had risen steadily while he swam. For an hour, the old man had been seeing black spots before his eyes, and the sweat salted his eyes and salted the cut over his eye and on his forehead. He was not afraid of the black spots. They were normal attention, and they were normal at the tension that he was pulling on the line. Twice, though, he had felt faint and dizzy, and that had worried him. I could not fail myself and die on a fish like this, he said, now that I have him coming so beautifully. God help me endure. I'll say 100 Our Fathers and 100 Hail Marys, but I cannot say them now. Consider them said, he thought. I'll say them later. Just then he felt a sudden banging and jerking on the line as he held it within his two hands. It was sharp and hard-feeling and heavy. He is hitting the wire leader with his spear, he thought. That was bound to come. He had to do it. It may make him jump, though, and I would rather he stayed circling now. The jumps were necessary for him to take air, but after that each one can widen the opening of the hook wound, and he can throw the hook. Don't jump, fish, he said. Don't jump. The fish hit the wire several times more, and each time he shook his head, the old man gave up a little line. I must hold his pain where it is, he thought. Mine does not matter. I can control mine, but his pain could drive him mad. After a while, the fish stopped beating at the wire and started circling slowly again. The old man was gaining line steadily now, but he felt faint again. He lifted some seawater with his left hand and put it on his head. Then he put more on and rubbed the back of his neck. I have no cramps, he said. He'll soon be up, and I can last. You have to last. Don't even speak of it. He kneeled against the bow and for a moment slipped the line over his back again. I'll rest now while he goes out on the circle, and then stand up and work him when he comes in, he decided. It was a great temptation to rest in the bow and let the fish make one circle by himself without recovering any line. But when the strain showed the fish had turned to come toward the boat, the old man rose to his feet and started the pivoting and the weaving, pulling that brought in all the line he had gained. I'm tireder than I have ever been, he thought, and now the trade wind is rising. But that will be good to take him in with. I need that badly. I'll rest on the next turn as he goes out, he said. I feel much better. Then in 2 or 3 turns more, I will have him. His straw hat was far back on his head, and he sank down into the bow with the pull of the line as he felt the fish turn. You work now, fish, he thought. I'll take you at the turn. The sea had risen considerably, but it was a fair weather breeze, and he was glad to have it to get home. I'll just steer south and west, the man said. A man has never lost his sea, and it is a long island. It was on the third turn that he saw the fish first. He saw him first as a dark shadow that took so long to pass under the boat that he could not believe its length. No, he said, he can't be that big. But he was that big, and at the end of the circle, he came to the surface only 30 yards away, and the man saw the tail out of the water. It was higher than a big scythe blade and very pale lavender above the dark blue water. It raked back, and as the fish swam just below the surface, the old man could see his huge bulk and the purple stripes that banded him. His dorsal fin was down, and his huge pectorals were spread wide. On this circle, the man could see the fish's eye and the two gray sucking fish that swam around him. Sometimes they attached themselves to him. Sometimes they darted off. Sometimes they would swim easily in his shadow. They were each over 3 feet long, and when they swam fast, they lashed their whole bodies like eels. The old man was sweating now, but from something else besides the sun. On each calm, placid turn, the fish made his gaining line. He was sure that in 2 turns he would have a chance to get the harpoon in. But I must get him close, 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 he thought. I mustn't try for the head. I must get the heart. Be calm and strong, old man, he said. On the next circle, the fish's back was out, but he was a little too far from the boat. On the next circle, he was still too far away, but he was higher out of the water, and the old man was sure that by gaining some more line, he could have him alongside. He had rigged his harpoon long before, and its coil of light rope was in a round basket, and the end was made fast to the bit of the bow. The fish was coming in on a circle, now calm and beautiful looking, only its great tail moving. The old man pulled on him with all that he could to bring him closer. For just a moment, the fish turned a little on his side. Then he straightened himself and began another circle. I moved him, the old man said. I moved him then. He felt faint again, but he held on to the great fish with all the strain that he could. I moved him, he thought. Maybe this time I can get him over. Pull hands, he thought. Hold up legs. Last for me, head. Last for me. You never went. This time I'll pull him over. But when he put all of his effort on, starting it well out before the fish came alongside and pulling with all his strength, the fish pulled part way over and then righted himself and swam away. Fish, the old man said. Fish, you are going to have to die anyway. Do you have to kill me too? That way nothing is accomplished, he thought. His mouth was too dry to speak, but he could not reach for the water now. I must get him alongside this time, he thought. I am not good for many more turns. Yes, you are, he told himself. You're good forever. On the next turn, he nearly had him, but again the fish righted himself and swam away slowly. You are killing me, fish, the old man thought, but you have a right to. Never have I seen a greater or more beautiful or a calmer or more noble thing than you, brother. Come on and kill me. I do not care who kills who. Now you are getting confused in the head, he thought. You must keep your head clear. Keep your head clear and know how to suffer like a man or a fish, he thought. Clear up, head, he said in a voice he could hardly hear. Clear up. Twice more it was with the same on the turns. I do not know, the old man thought. He had been on the point of feeling himself go each time. I do not know, but I will try once more. He tried once more, and he felt himself going when he turned the fish. The fish righted himself and swam off again slowly with the great tail weaving in the air. I'll try it again, the old man promised, although his hands were mushy now, and he could only see well in flashes. He tried it again, and it was the same, so he thought, and he felt himself going before he started. I will try it once again. He took all of his pain and what was left of his strength, his long-gone pride, and he put it against the fish's agony, and the fish came over onto its side and swam gently on his side, his bill almost touching the planking off the skiff, and started to pass the boat, long, deep, wide, silver and barred, with purple and interminable in the water. The old man dropped the line and put his foot on it and lifted the harpoon as high as he could and drove it down with all his strength. And more strength he had just summoned into the fish's side, just behind the great chest fin that rose high in the air to the altitude of the man's chest. He felt the iron go in, and he leaned on it and drove it further, and then pushed all his weight after it. Then the fish came alive with his death in him, and he rose high out of the water, showing all his great length and width and all his power and all his beauty. He seemed to hang in the air above the old man in the skiff. Then he fell into the water with a crash that sent spray all over the old man and over all of the skiff. The old man felt faint and sick, and he could not see well, but he cleared the harpoon line and let it run slowly through his raw hands, and when he could see, he saw the fish was on its back with his silver belly up. The shaft of the harpoon was projecting at an angle from the fish's shoulder, and the sea was discoloring with red from the blood from his heart. First, it was dark as a shoal in the blue water that was more than a mile deep. Then it spread like a cloud. The fish was silvery and still floated with the waves. The old man looked carefully in the glimpse of the vision that he had. Then he took 2 turns of the harpoon line around the bit in the bow and laid his head on his knees. "Keep my head clear," he said against the wood of the bow. "I am a tired old man, but I have killed this fish, which is my brother, and now I must do the slave work." And we'll finish it tomorrow.